So we've got what would have been IBC in Amsterdam coming up. There's a virtual IBC in its place, and supporting that, we are talking to guys like yourselves about what is being planned for this period. So from Sony's perspective, what's new for what would have been IBC 2020?
Our main idea is to make sure we still support our professionals, our customers in every field and aspects of the technology, kind of helping them live the vision that they're trying to create. Our main plan is to make sure that our experiences and skills that everyone has learned within this COVID pandemic, highlighting that audiences have been digesting content in a very different manner to usual, but also highlighting to them that Sony are here. We have been working on a lot of these technologies for quite a while now. So although some aspects have been accelerated and some areas we've put a lot more effort into deploying new and exciting features, but we have been doing a lot of this work in the background anyway. So some of our innovations we've actually been using through multiple years, but we've actually enhanced the workflow to make it slightly easier for a remote operation or social distancing environment. We're very aware that our customers have, got to put safety first, making sure that OB trucks, for example, there's social distancing measures. So you can't have as many people within the OB. So actually, why not bring everything back in a remote environment? This is not only helping reduce the costs of sending so many people, but also the carbon footprint. I think everyone's aware and has heard about the environmental benefits that have happened due to the pandemic. And actually, we want to help our customers continue to reap the benefits of a more green portfolio, if you will. Making sure that those remote workflows are robust and actually offer the same level of technical fulfillment that they would in a normal environment or a pre-COVID environment, if you will. So with that in mind, our focuses have been around high dynamic range, as they have been for numerous years. We've recently produced a new white paper kind of taking into account current workflow preferences from the industry and giving some practical guidance on how Sony feel you can optimally set up your environment for either a remote workflow or even a smaller in-truck environment, making sure that your HDR information is preserved for taking things into a post-production scenario. So if you have to reproduce this content in a few years' time because of another pandemic when sports shuts down, you can still produce an enhanced quality compared to how it was for your original broadcast. Sony had recently announced an update to our BRC series cameras that enables them to use the 3D standard protocol. This allows easier integration into AV and virtual reality toolsets, kind of providing the real-time positioning data to simplify those workflows. So we're able to use these cameras in a nice studio environment, but in a simplified manner, kind of helping to reduce the footprint that is required on set. Another area of remote workflows that Sony have been working on are some additional tool sets for our C Cloud suite. So we've been working with customers to not only make sure that they can efficiently log and promote smoother post-production workflows, but also to enable customers to utilize their content that they upload to the cloud in a more one-to-many relationship rather than kind of a one-to-one. Traditionally, the content in the cloud has been only for broadcast use, straight into post. We're trying to open it up so that that content can be used by a wider range of customers. So the content for a football match, for example, is of interest not only to the broadcasters, but to the clubs and the officiating bodies. And we're trying to make sure that the content is usable for everybody rather than just in a more linear fashion. Traditionally, in a pre-COVID environment, the sports clubs and officiators had to kind of send their own cameras to film the content. And we want to make sure that actually they don't need to be on site to capture everything for their in-house training tools or for reviewing that particular incident to make sure that it was legal or illegal. We're trying to make sure that those tool sets that are perfect for a post-production or broadcast engineering mindset are available for people whose focus is actually sport rather than just traditional broadcast, kind of simplifying and enhancing the workflows just to make sure that they are perfect for everybody. So one-to-many relationship rather than just that one-to-one high-level bespoke scenario. One of the areas that we've been trying to make sure our customers are able to work with is using the HDCE cameras that they know and love. Many customers throughout the world use them. Euromedia Group, Game Creek, TVN, as well as broadcasters such as Sky Germany, are able to use their tools that they have and were using pre-COVID in a remote workflow. Earlier this year, we announced a range of products in our HDCE series that are able to take existing camera systems like our 3500 or 2500 and 1700 series cameras and add in a remote link. Engineers just have to plug in the new box, send it back to the receiving side, which is located 100 miles away, 200 miles away, doesn't matter. And then they can use their existing infrastructure without having to change anything, enhancing the use of our products in a remote scenario. Another thing Sony are excited to announce is the fact that our HDC 3500 camera is going to be able to support high frame rate. It's going to be able to support 1, 2, 3, and 4 times HD in an SDI, IP, or wireless scenario, enabling our customers to use the toolsets they have now in a remote or local environment after the pandemic crisis is over. Last but not least, in August, Sony announced 2 new POV cameras, the SRG XP1 and the SRG XB25. Both of these cameras are ideal for both small and large productions, but also looking at things like esports and non-traditional sports, if you will. They support streaming technologies as standard, both SRT and NDI, for example, and are able to capture 4K at 50 frames a second straight away.
Thanks very much. Looking a bit further down the line, what else is coming up from Sony in the future, and importantly, why?
It's difficult to understand the impact of the pandemic on the sports and media industry. One thing that we are fully aware of is the world economy is going to be massively impacted. And we want to make sure that the changes that have existed and been kind of deployed in a rather rapid manner are actually changes that stand the test of time. Broadcaster workflows are there. They're great. They've been there for a reason, for a long time. They create beautiful pictures and emotional stories. And we want to make sure that in a remote workflow, that customers are still able to produce those invoking stories without having to compromise because of the fact that staff are located in many different locations rather than all being together in a close-knit team. Smarter solutions for small sports broadcasting are kind of on the tip of the iceberg. We're starting to scratch away at what customers really want, and we're able to enhance those workflows in a very quick manner. Earlier, I mentioned the one-to-many thing, that making sure that content that broadcasters capture is actually useful for multiple different end users, so that content can be available in a more dynamic story way. Additional metadata could be created to invoke more advanced workflows. You could put the additional player information or sports data in to create more compelling stories for a replay. Another area that is of real interest, and you're kind of seeing more and more, is our customers are taking tools that are traditionally cinema-based tools, such as the Sony Venice camera, and bringing those into sports, making sure that the content that can be used for the live event is also able to be used in behind-the-scenes documentaries that are becoming quite popular at the moment, kind of giving you that inside scoop, if you will. So taking things like our Sony Venice camera and then using it in the way that Fox Sports in the Netherlands did with NEP Netherlands, to take the Venice Cine Ultra camera and bring that into a sporting environment is truly amazing. They are able to give that cinematic look into their main production, whilst allowing that content to be graded if they wanted it to be for a future use. One of the directions we're really keen on investigating is enhancing the power of the cloud, making sure that not only customers in a broadcast environment are able to use the cloud, but expanding that out into other things like federations and officiating, as well as the teams themselves. For the Rugby World Cup in Japan last year, we were able to deploy some technology with our colleagues in Hawkeye that enabled the officiating staff to be located in multiple different locations. This allowed not only cost saving in terms of not sending all of the staff to Japan, but also during the storms that they suffered during the tournament, the referees were able to be located in safety in their hotel rooms rather than having to trek to the stadiums themselves to officiate everything on site. Enhancing workflows to be more robust, more reliable, as well as remote is very important to Sony, and taking additional sources and additional data to bring in more powerful things such as AI is really where we feel the industry is going to go.
So with IBC, should have been coming up in September. We have a virtual IBC, clearly. What's new from Hawkeye for what would have been the physical IBC? And importantly, why is it of interest to sports broadcasters, sports producers and sports content creators?
Sure. So starting with the kind of what's new. Over the last 12 to 18 months, we've been putting a lot of effort into our remote technologies. These are technologies that power workflows to give fans more access to content whilst keeping costs low and on-site footprints small. And I think a great example of this is the Emmy Award-winning Every Shot, Every Hole project, which we delivered in partnership with CBS and Thumb War at the Masters Golf in Augusta. And the aim of that project was to clip every single shot taken by every single golfer and make that available on masters.com within 10 minutes of the shot being taken. And from our side, we delivered this using 40 operators based offsite, split between Basingstoke in the UK and Atlanta in the US. And over the 4 days, they between them clipped over 22,000 shots. And that gave fans unprecedented ability to engage with the competition, which is obviously a huge undertaking and I think was a great success. But we've recently expanded the functionality of that platform used to provide that, to create a fully remote broadcast replay tool. And that's currently being used by a couple of major US broadcasters to provide instant replay for live sports coverage. And the reason why I think this is of interest is we've seen a shift in the industry over the last couple of years to minimizing the number of people needed on the ground to deliver live sports events. I think that's both from a perspective of reducing cost and reducing carbon footprint. And COVID has, I think, accelerated that shift. Obviously, safety now is kind of the overriding factor in that shift. And I think what the industry is looking for is sustainable, uncompromised solutions that provide solutions for the situation we're in now, but understand that that situation isn't permanent and therefore those solutions need to provide long-term benefits. And I think we've heard kind of from both sides of the Atlantic, broadcasters talk about what those long-term benefits could look like. In the UK, Jamie Hindhaugh from BT Sport and James Clements from Sky Sports have talked about their remote production roadmaps and how the pandemic has accelerated the transition to remote production as a standard. And that's a standard that they see continuing post-COVID. And in the US, as I mentioned, major broadcasters are using our remote broadcast replay product to deliver services for live sports. And that's allowing replay operators to deliver instant replay services from their living rooms. And obviously that provides a huge positive impact for both the broadcaster and the operators themselves at a time where social distancing is really important. So I think we're seeing kind of a paradigm shift in the industry towards remote operations. And the logical conclusion of that is, I think, working at home. And I think that's going to become more prevalent as connectivity improves and as 5G becomes more widespread. And I think COVID has accelerated other initiatives which help sport take place in a socially distanced manner. So over the last couple of years, we've developed Hawkeye Live, which is a live electronic line calling product for tennis, which allows matches to take place without lines judges being present on court. And that's currently being provided at the combined ATP and WTA Western and Southern Open, and will shortly be provided across a number of courts at the US Open. So I think there's a number of reasons why stakeholders from all across sport should be interested and excited in the technology that we're implementing.
Looking a bit further ahead into the future, what else is coming down the line from your company? And importantly, again, why?
Building off the back of the success of the Every Shot, Every Hole initiative with Masters Golf, we're looking at more services in that area. And the next service we're building out is called Every Shot Live, which aims to provide a live stream of every single shot taken by every golfer at a tournament. And we actually did provide this for a single day at the Players' Championship back in March before it was unfortunately cancelled due to COVID. So the hope is we get the opportunity to provide that at a tournament soon. We've also recently begun delivering player and ball tracking data to Major League Baseball as part of their StatCast service. And that includes our markerless motion capture technology, which provides full skeletal tracking of all players and officials on the ballpark. And whilst the increased number of stats and the improved accuracy of data we're able to provide as part of that service is loved by fans, by analysts, and by sabermetricians, I think there are some exciting potentials in broadcast for that as well. Namely, building off the back of the full skeletal tracking to provide, or to give the potential of providing, low latency virtual reproduction of sporting events. And that will hopefully derive new revenue streams for federations, for broadcasters, and also potentially open up sports to a whole new generation of fans. And I think kind of as an industry, we're going to see more and more self-curated and smart content demanded by viewers, but that's going to be needed to be provided with fewer and fewer feet on the ground. And I think every shot, every hole, every shot live, and to a certain extent the MLB projects deliver to those challenges. I think as a whole, there's going to be a significant focus across the industry to meet those demanding needs, and that's a challenge that we at Hawkeye and more widely at Sony relish.